Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Margie Breault, who's an energy medicine specialist, transformational coach, and healing artist devoted to helping others reconnect with their innate rhythm and radiance. Trained in the ancient art of channeling and the synergy of sound, she weaves natural law, intuitive guidance, and lived experience into every offering. Her work is a return to truth, where healing, embodiment, science, and spiritual wisdom meet. Margie, welcome to the show.
Ashley, thank you so much for having me. I know we had to reschedule, so I'm glad we could get it on.
Yes, me too. As I was sharing with Margie before we began recording, I feel like this is going to be such a fun episode. And I am so excited to have you on to talk about you and everything that you're up to. And that's where I'd love to have you begin. If you could share more about yourself with our listeners.
As you said, my name's Margie Breault. I'm the owner of a business called Prism of Brilliance. I just opened a physical location in Worcester on Grafton Street, and it's really exciting because I've owned my own business, I've been working within my own business and working in the entrepreneurship ecosystem for almost 10 years now. And so to really start to be able to expand and have like a brick and mortar location is very exciting. I'm a person who does a lot of things in the world, a lot of expanding, a lot of learning, and then also a lot of community involvement. So, on top of owning a business, I also work as the Business and Community Advancement Manager for the City of Worcester. And then through that role, I run the Worcester Business Resource Alliance, and then I also co-facilitate Leadership Worcester with Karen Peltier from the Chamber of Commerce. And then I'm always in an expansive learning experience. So I'm forever taking a new class. I'm forever expanding the wisdom I hold around energy medicine. I volunteer a lot to offer that back into the world, whether I'm mentoring with E4All or Startup Worcester, or I'm judging a panel or a pitch contest. And then I also give back by partnering with organizations like Gobinde Yogic Health to offer low cost services for the people that go to them already. Um, I offer the opportunity for other people to also come into this space and use it as well.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you have such a full plate, firstly, but it's very clear that you are so passionate about everything that you're doing and being able to kind of tap into all these different interests, like supporting local businesses and the city, and also being able to focus on the energy medicine side.
I think it's really important that we focus on not leaving the world to be spiritual people on a healing path, but bringing that into the world
Hmm.
and all the spaces and places that we can possibly go. So something that I'm really passionate about is bringing flow to out of flow spaces and specifically into the business world, into teams, into organizations, into communities. And so when you think about like our internal environment creates our external reality. That is true of an organization, a community, a municipality, a government as well. So if internally, on an individual level, we are not thriving, then when we're entering a team, we're also not contributing to the thriving of that team. And so then if
Hmm.
you look at a team or a community or a municipality or a government or any organization that has teams of people, you're if you're not focused on individual wellness, then the team is not going to thrive. And so it's really important to be able to bring these practices into those people's lives. And so, where business is something that I'm very passionate about and bringing it into that place, I find it's very important to not separate and still bring my whole self into those places. And so, I'm also getting ready to finish up my master's degree. I'll be finished at the end of October. And at that time, I'll also be applying for my PhD in organizational behavior because I want to further this research that I already have and already have direct evidence of, and be able to teach it on a collegiate level once I obtain my PhD.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love the work that you're doing and what you mentioned about how what we go through and face internally totally reflects onto our external relationships or reality, or whatever it might be. And that's something I've always felt and always said, where people will say, like, nope, you need to keep your personal life strictly personal. It can't overflow into business or your professional life. But I always feel like if you're going through something difficult personally, like a death to someone who was close to you, or even just really difficult challenges, that's going to affect your personal life or your business life. And so it kind of sounds like from what you've shared is kind of what you've been talking about and some of the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that honoring the whole self. If more companies provided tools and opportunities for individuals to come back to their center in a workday and not so focused so much on are they sitting at their desk for 40 hours a week, but more
Mhm.
focused on like how well is that employee and 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 then the employee, if given the opportunities and the skills building that they need to thrive, will actually be producing more than if you were, not focused on them being at the desk for 40 hours. And so
Mhm.
I think it's really important to look at that in all types of spaces. Like, you know, think of schools, think of colleges, think of um, you know, organizations with 12,000 employees that are running big operations. That's true for those teams as well. If we focused on not the checkbox of like we have that employee wellness program that they can tap into through HR, but like really providing the opportunities in the spaces and making sure the spaces are set up for wellness and not set up to keep you in a cubicle or locked into an office, that would change the way that an organization would run.
Oh yeah. And so is that what you're kind of focusing on now in your master's and then into your PhD, like that type of studies and seeing how things get affected in that sense?
Absolutely. And so another thing that's also I deeply apprentice with the Swaha Yoga and Synergy of Sound Academy. So it's where I have taken most of my classes and continue to take classes, but I also apprentice with them so I can teach as a part of the academy. And so the person who created it, her name is Lisa Ashwari Murphy. She's also very in business and she works with corporations and CEOs. And so in my research, I'll be able to follow some of the work that she's already done, as well as like following an organization that she will start working with around the time that I will be starting that research,
Mhm.
so that I can prove that like incorporating breath work, incorporating a like a yoga room in an office space, making sure there's lots of greenery, making sure that there's like rhythmic music playing in the background, infusing lots of things that are from the earth into the space will actually change the way that the organization flows. And again, focused on the wellness of the team and the individual will then increase the productivity and the revenue that the organization or the team is trying to build. And so I can't wait to be able to like have my hands on direct evidence, because then I can literally be teaching it to people who are wanting to be in leadership, who are wanting to build businesses, who are wanting to work as a part of teams. I'll then have like direct scientific data to show that if you do it this way, you're actually going to have a better outcome than if you do it the way that the world has taught you.
Oh, 100%. And to your points that you mentioned, I mean, making more money, being able to have more productive employees. On that route, I imagine being able to retain your employees. I mean, that's huge right now, and especially in any type of competitive hiring space. You want to be able to retain the people that you have on your team that are really great. You don't want to lose out on them.
Absolutely. And if you're, again, providing tools and resources and ways for them to grow internally, then you're going to be able to retain them because they're going to feel safe and supported. And you look at like that Maslow hierarchy of needs, like a person who's on survival mode is not actually operating in their true self. They're not even operating to their full capacity. They're operating on just what they can on survival mode. And most people operate there because that's the kind of world that we live in. Because a lot
Mhm.
of people also don't know how to manage their emotions or even identify them. So they disassociate from them completely. They put them in boxes of positive and negative, and they have no idea how to navigate actually feeling them and expressing them in a way that's not destructive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would love to hear more about your energy medicine work specifically. Like, how did you get introduced into this world? And I would just love to hear more about your journey and your story in that sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I always like to get really authentic and real about what led me to get here, because I think that's really important for people to hear, because what people see now is like the person they see right in front of them, whether it's listening to this podcast or seeing the person who shows up online in this moment. They don't actually see the journey of like who I was before, the person who was on survival mode to get here. And
Mhm.
so that story comes with a lot of understanding the wounds in which I came from. And so early on in life, I was started to be fed a lot of stories about myself of who I was. And so like starting at like the age of 4, I would be made to look in the mirror and tell myself I was a liar. And I was told that I was the cause and source of pain and that I liked drama and that, I was never good enough and I was always compared to other people. And there was a lot of emphasis on like, you know, just me being a bad person, the black sheep, if you will, of the family. And so I was always trying to like work against that narrative as a kid. First I like really played into it because I was like, okay, I guess all this stuff is true. So I'm just like gonna be that chaotic liar who's doing all these things that you're saying I'm doing because I guess that's the truth. I didn't know that I had the opportunity to not believe it. And then as I got older, it switched from really playing into that narrative into like now I hate myself and I want to try to work against that narrative. So I was in people pleasing, I was in victim mentality, I was in positive projection where I would not look at emotions that felt too hard or what people would perceive as a negative emotion. I didn't want to look at them. I wanted to be sunshine, rainbow, butterflies. I want everyone to think my life was perfect. And I also was in and out of therapy, learning a lot of these terms that made me sound really self aware, but I wasn't. I was very unaware, but I also felt very disconnected. I felt really like a deep depression, deep anxiety, but in this like perfectionism mode where I was trying to hide that all of that existed beneath the surface. And so I was really burnt out and I was really tired. And in my early 20s, I had reached out to a being who had abused me for a long time in my life. And I wanted to know why. I was asking, like, why did you do this? And their response was to like actually not be remorseful, was actually to double down and then let me know that like they still wanted a life with me. And that little girl who would go right into the fawning and the people pleasing because she wasn't really self-aware, because she wasn't really have not had done any healing, she came right back out. And so I engaged in this conversation to try to keep myself free from harm. And so for people who don't know what fawning is, like we hear a lot about flight and flight as a response to trauma, but there's also freeze and fawn as well. And so fawning is when you are trying to appease the perpetrator or the bully. You're trying to like make them feel good so that they don't harm you because you feel like that lessens the harm. And that is a mode I would go into often. And so a friend of mine was witnessing all of this happen and she was like, "Hey, I know you're in and out of therapy and I know that like, you know, you're navigating this because you're trying to help yourself, but I don't think it's helping. And I think that you should go to get a Reiki session. I've been trying it out and it's been really helping me and I think that it might help you too." And I was like, you know what? You're right. Anything, I'll try anything. So I really truly didn't know who I was. And I believed so many of the stories I was told about myself still, and still felt so terrible about myself that I was still trying to work against them. And I was so sick of codependent relationships. I was so sick of feeling like I needed to bend over backwards to please people who didn't care about my feelings. And so I went to the Reiki session and it was wonderful. And I was like, oh my God, how could I not know that something like this existed in the world? And so I would go to these Reiki sessions and I would feel really lovely and really spacious in those moments. And then I would go back into my life and I'd go back into the cycles that I was in and I would go back into the belief systems and, I'd be back in the bar room with my boyfriend Thursday through Sunday and I'd be still with those codependent relationships and I'd still be lying and I'd still be having a lot of chaos around me and I'd still be having that narrative of like, I don't like myself. And so another friend of mine was like, well, you know what? Because of all the things you've experienced, maybe you need to learn about it on a deeper level so that you can understand yourself better. And so I was like, you know what? I'll try anything. So I went in to start learning about energy medicine for myself. It was never about bringing it to other people at first. It was about bringing it to me so that I could find myself.
Yeah.
And so I went through Reiki Master 1, 2, and Reiki 3, all the way up to my Master Teacher. And I experienced such a shift that I then was seeking so much more knowledge. I was like, I want to know everything. And so I took an intro to shamanism and got some of my Muay Thai rights. With a shaman who practices in Massachusetts, and then I took some herbalism classes and aromatherapy, and I started learning through podcasts and reading books, like all the spiritual healing, self-help stuff, because I just wanted to know so much more, and now I felt like I was like on this path. And then I finally walked myself into a natural law class, still guided by the person who told me to take Reiki for myself. She was actually a babysitter of mine as a kid.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and so she was like, I found this community and they're teaching about natural law, and it's more than just like attraction and manifestation. It's really like all of the things that go with it. You should come. I think you'd really like it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you haven't steered me wrong yet, so let's go. And so I went to a class with her, and in that class they're talking about natural law, and the first law that they were talking about that I went to was about the law of polarity. And so the law of polarity talks about how everything is made up in duality. And so bringing it back to like a scientific and a very natural level is like, think of an atom. An atom has protons and electrons, and then the neutron in the middle. And the protons and electrons are positive and negative, and you have to have both to have a charge. And the neutrons in the middle witnessing it all while organizing it to have power. And so if everything exists in the world of atoms, then everything that exists must be true for that as well. And it is. Nothing is positive or negative, it's both. We have to be able to see both and then choose optimally the third choice, not going into the black and white of it, but going into the spectrum of all the colors, all the gray space. And so I saw this path forward, like in that moment of learning about it and really understanding what they were saying. I was like, oh my God, I don't have to be in this unsustainable energy of positive projection. I don't have to stay here. There's a whole other path forward where I can be aware of the harm that's been caused in life, whether it be by me or someone else, and like still be okay because I don't have to pretend it didn't exist, or I don't have to be in such despair that it happened. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. I needed to learn everything, and so that was my first introduction to the Swaha Yoga and Synergy of Sound Academy. That was 7 years ago, and I have been on the road with them ever since, learning and growing and expanding and bringing it to others. It has been one of the biggest privileges of my life to really show up in a way where I'm living the things that I'm learning, and so that the way that I'm bringing it to others is by way showing and not by learning something in a book and then trying to teach it to somebody. I'm living these experiences, having direct evidence and transformation in my life, and then sharing that with others, and then sharing the that I've learned in a way that supports others, turning the light on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you just like went throughout your own personal journey, just like getting your hands on and being so open to all these different modalities and options that you could try. And as you shared at the very beginning of this episode, you're someone who just loves to learn, which is so clear from your journey and how you've been embracing all of these new opportunities. And so after hearing your powerful story about using your own difficulties to then find your way through it, where did that kind of like light bulb come on for you as like, you know what, I've learned all these things, I've gone through it myself, now I want to help others? Like, what was that moment that made you realize you now want to offer this as a teacher yourself?
Mm. Um, After I went through the the natural law class is really when I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. If I do both of these in tandem, continue to learn and grow, I think I'm ready to start bringing it to other people. And
Mhm.
so that's when I started to, offer sessions to others and start my journey. Originally, my name was Margie the Good Witch. Before I found Prism of Brilliance, I thought it was really cute. A coworker of mine at the time, I had been making like rollers and sage sprays, and she was like, "You're like a witch, Margie the Good Witch," and I thought it was so cute that I kept it, but it didn't really resonate with me.
Yeah.
Because I don't really consider myself a witch, and I was getting a lot of calls about like love spells and all these different things, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, it's time to shift my name.
Time to rebrand.
It's time to rebrand. And that's when I rebranded into Prism of Brilliance. Um, and so that had, I mean, the experience of learning it for myself and then realizing that I loved teaching other people, that's just unfolded so naturally. I don't think there was a single moment where I was like, I'm gonna do that. It's kind of like I started doing it and then I was like, oh, I am a teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, like I do hold a lot of wisdom because of the things that I've lived through. And I no longer do speak from the wound in a trauma bond, but I speak from the light and the place where I've let the light in. And
Mhm.
so that is a really different experience when you're working with somebody who is sharing things that they've been through, because then they're also sharing the transformation through the work that they've done. And so that's a very powerful experience that I didn't quite recognize until I started sharing it with others.
Yeah.
And the more I heal, the more that comes up, the more I can share with others. Because the thing is like in the first 18 years of my life, and I would say really truly until I got on the healing path and a little bit thereafter, so well into my 20s, I experienced a lot of pain and trauma. Like there was narcissistic abuse from my parental units. There was long-term sustained sexual abuse. There was a lot of bullying. There was self-harm. There was a lot of things that occurred throughout my young adult life that I mean, no one person should have to carry any of it, and I carried a lot of it.
Mhm.
And so the amount of people that I can help because of all of the things that I've been through. I mean, first I had to find the help for me so that I could get there, but I just have so much experience and love and wisdom to give because I know that change is possible because change was possible for me.
Mhm.
I know that growth is possible. I know that you are not the person who operated on survival mode. That's not even true to who you are. Because when you're safe, when you're in your heart, when you are operating in a place of love, you would never make the decisions or do the things that you would do on survival mode. And I know that is true because I know it's true for me and the
Mhm.
people that I've witnessed transform in their own journeys around me. Here in this heart space where I am now, that's really connected and doing all the work, I would never be in a place where I'm lying about, especially things that don't even need to be lied about. Like I would lie about the most random things. It didn't even make sense why I was lying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to cause harm to my body. I wouldn't want to starve my body. I wouldn't want to give my body to anybody who was willing to look at it. Like there are just so many things I wouldn't make as choices now, and not because I think they're bad choices, just because I myself am walking as a temple, and so I wouldn't allow that to
Mhm.
happen in this temple, nor would I want it for it to happen in yours. And so it's just a very different way to walk in the world and experience things, and everyone can have that. And so why wouldn't I want to teach that to people?
Yes. And that's exactly, it seems like one of the reasons why you opened your physical space. And I would love to hear more about what that process was like. I am in awe of anyone who opens up a brick and mortar location because there's so much hard work and effort and energy that goes into it. And it's a labor of love, really. So I'd love to hear more about what that was like for you with just being able to get things started.
Yeah, I would say that this has been the most divinely guided experience that I've had. Um, so I have been looking for like land to purchase where I can both have a home and create like a healing space on it.
Mhm.
One of my gifts is being a human communication center, and I wanted a space that reflected that, and I wanted to be connected to my home. And so that's been something I've been doing a lot of work around obtaining, and I just haven't been able to find the space yet. And my mentor was like, I'm thinking around June, you're gonna, you're gonna have the space. And I was like, I don't know. I haven't found anything. My credit score is not quite where it needs to be. I still have some work to do. And she was like, well, I'm feeling June. And so in a lot of the work that we've done, I'm always connecting with a tree on whatever land I'm working with in our journeys. And so I'm like, I'm looking for a tree. I just haven't found the tree yet. Like, I'm seeing all these spaces, but no tree has called to me. And so my family has lived in Worcester, and owned property and businesses in Worcester for over 100 years. And the family I live in, our family owned three decker. So it's me and my husband and our kids on the first floor, my dad on the second floor, my brother-in-law on the third floor, still owned by my aunt. And then my grandfather and my uncle used to own a car dealership and car repair shop, like on the same street for about 63 years.
Wow, my gosh.
And so, you know, I drive up and down Grafton Street all the time. I live here. And so I drove down the street one day and I saw a for rent sign on this little building that I had literally never noticed. It's like in between an apartment and a house. Like never noticed it before, but I saw this huge for rent sign. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that I could be opening a business on Grafton Street because I'm supposed to find a physical location where I live and work on. And I'm connecting with a tree and I don't see trees there. And so I totally put it out of my mind, but I became like I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, but I could. It's so close to the house, and I kept pushing it away, and I just heard this like echo of like family tree, family tree, like in the back of my
Oh.
head, and I was like, no way, like no, no physical tree, like I was holding really staunchly onto this, this other vision and putting it out of my mind. And so a couple of weeks went by and I drove by again and the for rent sign was still out there and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to call the place. I'm going to call. So I get in touch with them. I make an appointment to come see it. I come here and the space is literally like in the basement, so you can't hear Grafton Street from it. It is very cave-like. It felt very spacious, even though it's not very large. It felt spacious.
Mhm.
And there was a huge parking lot, which was like unheard of on Grafton Street. But also in the back of the parking lot, there's a beautiful lawn with a creek running through it.
Uh,
And so you can sit out in the yard and hear the water, and there is definitely trees back there as well. As well as like lots of other like, beautiful plants and animals back there. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like this is the place. And so the owner of the building then wanted to meet with me. I met with him 2 days later. He is also a Worcester native. And so, his family grew up in the area. He now owns a home with his wife in the area. And it was kismet. It was like it was meant to be. So
mhm.
we shook hands. He said, I'd love to have you. We worked out the rent, which is like, one of the ridiculously lowest rents that you could possibly barter anywhere for anything. And within 2 weeks, I was almost fully outfitted in the space. My sister came
Wow.
from Florida. She painted a beautiful 17-foot mural on my wall. The community hosted like a little business shower for me. And so there's literally nowhere that I look inside of this space that there isn't something that someone gifted me from my community. Um,
Oh, I love that.
including every plant that's in this building. Every plant is from someone in the community. Every deity was a gift. The crystals are mostly, I mean, gifts and things I brought for my house. Um, there's just so much love that was poured into the space, and my dad gave me the initial investment to buy the things that like I needed. So there's literally nowhere I look in here that I said I did this on my own. It was a pouring of the community that I pour into back into me.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so I can't say that the experience was really difficult or hard. It was one of the easiest yeses I've ever said yes to, and then one of the most beautiful coming togethers that has ever come together in my life, which really just shows me that it was the right choice.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love that you mentioned that so many parts of your space is just from people in your life who are important to you and have played an important role in that. And as you shared, like the community that you've poured so much into is now giving back to you. And that's one thing I'd love to touch upon because I view you as such like a small business champion who has done so much throughout your different positions to support other businesses in the community. And so I'd love to hear more about that work that you've done because you do so much for a lot of the people around you.
Yeah, so my work with small businesses and entrepreneurs started when I was at the Better Business Bureau. I was there pre-pandemic and through the pandemic, and through the pandemic they had to do some rounds of layoffs, and I was one of the people who unfortunately wasn't able to keep my job there. And that is, I mean, previous to that, I was in mental health and dual diagnosis disability. And
Mhm.
so I was there for about 10 years before I made the switch over into economic development, entrepreneurship, and that ecosystem. And the Better Business Bureau is really where I found my love of entrepreneurship and small businesses. Like, uh, entrepreneurs are some of the most creative, dynamic, out of the box thinkers, and I just felt so much excitement and power working with them. And that's, I got the entrepreneurial bug, I got the small business bug. And so after my time at the Better Business Bureau, I first was in their membership and sales team, and then I was on their communications team before I left. And then from there, I went to Entrepreneurship for All. So, the day I was getting let go from the Better Business Bureau when they did the round of layoffs was the day I got my my offer for Me for All.
Oh my gosh,
So
divine
I
timing.
really, yeah, I really didn't go without a job for very long, which is great because I also found out I was pregnant that in that same time frame. And so, I worked with E for All. I was their Greater Worcester. I was their founding program manager. So during my time there, I helped, nearly 100 businesses grow and start in central Massachusetts, which, was something that's really near and dear to my heart. So for those of you who don't know, E for All or Entrepreneurship for All is an accelerator program. And it's something that I still volunteer for with now. So I've been out of E for All for 3 years, and I've mentored with every cohort that has gone through since I left. I read applications for every cohort. I interview. I judge final presentations. I judge pitch contests. Um, and that's something that I'm really dedicated to doing. I don't only do that for E4All, but I also do that for Startup Worcester, which is another accelerator program in the city. I'm a mentor for them as well. And then I also really, I try to divide my time as far as volunteering through the things that enjoy doing, and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship and small businesses and being a dot connector and a bridge builder for those people is something that I do so naturally because of my ability to have so much knowledge of the entrepreneurship ecosystem that we hold in Worcester. And
Mhm.
that's due partly to my job with the city, because a part of the things that I do with the city is run the Worcester Business Resource Alliance, which is a combination of the government entities and the nonprofits within central Massachusetts that are specifically for small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so when people come to me looking for help and support, it's not like I give them like a blanket one size fits all. I'm like listening to exactly what they need, and then I'm building the solutions and the roadmap based on where they are right now, because that looks different for every entrepreneur based on
Mhm.
where they're at. And so that is something that I love doing. And it's another thing where I get to weave, my energy medicine and my organizational background into what I do in the world. And then I also co-lead, like I said earlier in the conversation, Leadership Worcester, which is a leadership program that's run by the Chamber of Commerce. 3 years ago, I went through the program, and they asked me to, actually 4 years ago, I went through the program. And then they asked me to take over facilitation because one of the women that was facilitating was going on to move to a different state, and it was just time to find a new facilitator. And so um, I had a little imposter syndrome when when they were asking me to take that over. I shadowed for 1 year before she retired, and then last year was my first year flying solo and facilitating with Karen, just her and I. And this year will be my second year. So that's a 9-month program, which leadership leaders from the community go through this leadership incubator program. They meet once a month for 9 months, and it kicks off with a retreat, which is actually this week. And so I do a lot of facilitation and facilitation training, which I also again weave all of my things into. So like when I'm at the retreat, I am weaving in natural law wherever possible. I do it covertly so they don't, it's subtle, so they don't, I'm not
Yeah.
like calling out natural law, but like I weave breath work into what we're doing. I weave, um, somatic movement. I weave in as much as I can into letting them experience something that maybe they haven't experienced. Like one of the things as a part of the retreat is me doing a meditation and a sound bath. So like they're experiencing that if they choose to. They don't have to. It's a choice. But it's that non-separation of self. It's that continuing to
Yes.
bring that in all the places that I'm going and showing up as a leader in the community who's helping other leaders grow, and then making sure that I'm still giving them that same thing that I would give someone who's coming for a one-on-one session with me. It just looks different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And with someone like yourself who is so multi-passionate, I mean, you have a family, you have Prism of Brilliance, you work for the city, you volunteer, you mentor, you do so many amazing things. Like, how do you juggle it all? How do you find, I guess, like the time to just feel like it's balanced? I don't know if I want to say balance because I don't know if I personally believe in everything always being a balance and equal, but how do you just like juggle everything?
Honestly, it is through making sure that I'm only saying yes to things that are resonant with where I'm at in the moment. And I have to make space for me. Like, I have to make space for play. I have to make space for rest. I have to make space to make sure I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit because my mind, body, and spirit needs to be nourished. And
Hmm.
so I do that whenever and wherever possible. Like I do a lot, but like I'm in bed by 9 o'clock almost every night. There are very few exceptions where I'm out past 9 p.m. But like I'm usually home by 7:30 if I have something else to do in the evening. Again, there are a
Hmm.
few exceptions to that when I have some events that maybe run past that, but like I'm home. I'm going to bed. I'm making sure that like I'm putting my kids to bed whenever possible. I'm playing with them. I'm making sure I make
Yeah.
space for them. I make space for my husband. I make space for my own healing. And again, I bring all of these practices into my life, and it's not like, okay, you meditated for an hour and you did yoga for 45 minutes and you did breath work for 30 and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, listening to what my body needs in each moment as things
Mm,
arise. And that
yeah.
looks different every single day, right? As much as possible, I'm making it a part of my life and not trying to fit my life into the box of healing and spirituality. It's
Yeah.
again bringing it into life. So sometimes it's like I'm doing mantras and breath work while I'm sitting in traffic. And sometimes it's like I'm listening to a rhythmic playlist while I'm sitting in my office at City Hall. And maybe I'm doing some like under the breath chanting while I'm sitting there too. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need to go for a walk because I need some space.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm shaking it out in the living room with my 7-year-old, and that's our somatic movement for the day. But I also, again, like I make space to practice yoga on the mat. Yoga isn't just on the mat type of experience, it's bringing it into your everyday as well. It's a way of life because there's more than just the asana, it's just the movement. Uh, so I practice that on the mat as much as I can. I'm a part of a gym called Fit Frenzy Studios. I make my way there 3 to 6 times a week. I get my own healing sessions every 4 weeks. That's for me. That's to keep my light burning brighter. It's to uncover my blind spots and keep my vision at the forefront. And making sure that again I'm only saying yes to those things that support that vision, um, and
Yeah.
and and don't allow myself to go into the people pleasing mode of saying yes to everything, but only saying yes to the things that align.
Hmm.
Um, and I can only do all of that with the support system. Like it's
Yeah.
not because I'm trying to do everything on my own. It's because I recognize that there are time and space to delegate. And my husband is amazing. My husband is my partner, and he wants all the things that I want just as much as I do. So he creates the space for me to be able to do that without adding mom guilt onto it. without saying like you're out too much or you do this too much or blah 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 blah. He enjoys watching me thrive and being the person that can hold down the fort and not babysitting his kids, but being there to like be a parent too. Because if
Hmm.
the roles were reversed, no one would ask that question to him.
Totally.
And so, I also have a wonderful father who is a very huge support system for me. He helps every day. I mean, we eat dinner together every day. He cooks dinner 2 days a week. He does the dishes every day with my 7-year-old. He helps me in the morning getting them ready and out to school because my husband is a school bus driver, so he's out by 5:30. And
Mhm.
so there, allowing the village to village.
Yes. Oh, I love that
Well,
phrase.
yeah. And then also making sure that before I'm trying to outpour anything, that I'm full first. You
Hmm.
know, we learn in the world that it's better to give than receive. And I don't agree to that because we need to consider ourselves in our giving. And if we're empty, we can't pour anything. And we
Yeah.
also can't give anything that we're not holding. Because if we're trying to give from empty, then there's an expectation attached, whether or not we want to admit it.
Yes. I just had to like quickly type that down. Allow the village to village because that is such a good phrase. And I think it's an important reminder that we have people in our lives who want to help us, who want to support us. And as you shared, in order for you to be able to have the time and space to do everything that you do, you have that support system that makes it possible. And so I love that reminder of just anyone to just lean on the people who are there for you, and know that they genuinely want to support you so that you can thrive and follow your own dreams.
And it's all about like really healthy communication and dynamics. Like, if my dad needs to say no, whether or not he's because he doesn't want to or he has something to do, it's like, okay, then we adjust what we needed to do that day. Like it's
Hmm.
it's all about recognizing that it doesn't need to show up in the form of your dad or your husband either. Like if you're not
Yes.
someone who's married, right? Like who else in your life actually shows up to support you?
Hmm.
Lean on those people because when we show people that we're willing to receive support and we're willing to, receive it, then they're going to be more likely to ask us too. So then we really build people that we can connect and actually lean on each other for things, without, I do for you and then you do nothing for me. It's like that give and take, that
Yes.
reciprocity that we live in.
Yes, absolutely. And on the topic of giving, I feel like this will be such a hard question for you because it'll probably be hard for you to just narrow it down to a few. But I always love to ask our guests what their favorite local businesses are to support. And so I'm curious to hear what yours might be.
That is really hard because I know so many businesses. And I have so many friends who are also entrepreneurs. So let me shout out my best friend. Her name's Jennifer Hernandez. She owns a business called Gem Marketing Solutions. She really focuses on nonprofits and building sustainable plans for nonprofits to thrive, through marketing and communication. So shout out to Gem Marketing. I will also shout out E4All again because they're an organization I love, and I think that it doesn't matter if you have owned a business or not. Being able to mentor others in the world is such a rewarding experience. So if you have a place that you really shine, whether it's business, whether it's marketing, whether it's financial, whether it's taxes, whether it's, whatever, any sphere of the world that you really shine in, an entrepreneur could benefit from the wisdom that you have. So I think that that's a really amazing organization to engage with and spend your time on doing things with. Um, Another really amazing business is my gym, Fit Frenzy Studios in Shrewsbury, one of my favorite places to go. And I'll shout out again Svaha Yoga and Synergy of Sound Academy. It's where I take a lot of my classes. They're not in Central Mass; they are in the South Coast, but they're still here in Massachusetts. And I will shout out one more if you're looking for a photographer or somebody who, does any sort of like branding photography, wedding photography, family headshots. Seeking Spirit Photography is another, you know, place that I really think does cool things in the world.
Yeah, amazing. I love that you covered all the bases from yoga to your gym to marketing, E for all, really everything. I love that you had such like a diverse answer for that.
But believe me, there's so many more that I could shout out, but I'll leave it there.
Margie, this has been such a fun episode, and I've so loved having you come on the show to share everything that you've done throughout your life and your career. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online because they'd like to connect.
Yeah, if you want to find me online, you can go to my website, www.prismofbrilliance.biz. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Margie Breault on LinkedIn, Breault. And you know, feel free to send me a DM, send me an email. My phone number is listed on my website. You can send me a text. Just let me know where you found me.
Amazing. And I will include all those places in the show notes that our listeners can easily connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on this week's episode.
Thanks for having me.